Hi YouTube, my name is Heather and I love anti-MLM content here on YouTube. Today I'm super excited to watch part of the Beachbody team call about how to overcome price objections. I'm really excited to watch this video, and as always, please let me know what you think about this down below.
The too expensive, right? It's like, we're not talking Louis Vuitton purses here. Like, what do you mean too expensive? You just bought the Louis Vuitton purse. I got the Gucci purse.
How many average people just go around buying Louis Vuitton purses? I make a good salary for someone in my career path, and I would never spend $2,000 on a purse. I would never spend $100 on a purse. So what are you even talking about? And just because $160 to start a business is not a lot of money to you does not mean that it's not going to be a lot of money for the person that you're asking. And I know she's not actually sitting there saying, what do you mean it's too expensive? But that's her mindset, and that's the mindset she's teaching people to when they go into these conversations. Does that make sense? And so they're going into these conversations assuming that everyone's just going to automatically see the value of Beachbody, and everyone's going to see it as spending $160 to start an actual business instead of spending that money to be a salesperson for a company.
Right? I still say stuff's too expensive as I'm holding this freaking thing. Funny story, when I bought this,
She still says things are too expensive when she's holding a $2,000 purse. I can say something's too expensive and technically have the money to buy it. And I say that just because I don't see the value in spending my money. So I have $100 to buy a purse. I do, but I would never do it because that's not how I want to spend my money, right? I want to spend my money on books or nice art for our wall so we like where we live. I don't want to spend my money on purses, and I don't want to spend my hard-earned money to join your pyramid scheme, join your downline so you can make more money.
my bank said no. The money was there, but my bank still said no. So my friend had to use her credit card and I had to Venmo her. The horror in friggin' Beverly Hills. Yeah, so that was a nice humbling of me, right? When someone says something is too expensive, my favorite thing to say, okay, totally get that. What part is too expensive? Guarantee you're going to stop them in their tracks. They're going to be like, It's not too expensive. They just have another question they either don't know of yet or they're afraid to ask.
Why are you making weird noises? Why are you being rude? They're just like, ooh. And if someone says it's too expensive, I feel like you should be like, okay, fine, cool, and move on. Not saying what part is too expensive. Like, what do you mean what part? The $160 to start a business is too expensive, right? Like, what are you talking about?
Right? If there's a piece that's too expensive, right, when you think of like a total solution pack, all right, let's see if we can call their bluff a little bit. If there's a piece that's too expensive, I can absolutely share other options that don't include that expensive component. Can you tell me which one it is? Boom, right? This might be an opportunity, right? If it's really money that's keeping them hung up, you can downsell them to a bod. We have other options. But
Did you hear that? If it's really money that's keeping them hung up, downsize them to bod, so Beachbody on demand. That's fine. That's a sales tactic where if someone is hesitant to invest the big amount of money into like the solution they actually need, you can like give it to them on a trial basis or say like, why don't we try this part first? And then if you're happy with the service, then you can upgrade to the service that you want. And that's fine. That's fine. But I don't like the part where she says, if it's really money that's hanging them up. So she's going into this conversation assuming that they're either lying or they're using the too expensive objection as like a cop out because they're too scared to invest in themselves, start a business, and get healthy. When in reality, it could be they literally don't have an extra $160 in their budget, or they don't want to spend their hard-earned money on your pyramid scheme. I'm sure we've all had moments in our life where we literally did not have any wiggle room in our budget. Myself, right after grad school, I worked in a daycare part-time while I was looking for my first big girl job. I budgeted penny for penny, and there's no way I had 160 extra dollars to just throw away on something I didn't actually need. And she's assuming that just everyone has the money. It's not actually too expensive, and they're just scared to start. What do you think?
most of the time, anyone that says too expensive doesn't actually mean it. It uncovers to generally some variation of, I'm afraid it won't work. I'm afraid I won't do the work. We can coach them through both of those.
just don't coach them through anything. Just say, okay, that's fine, and move along. Especially considering in Beachbody, you don't actually need any of that bullshit that they peddle you. You can get protein shakes and pre and post workout that are just as good anywhere else. Literally, like the Energize is nothing special. It's just caffeinated powder, and it's not even that much caffeine in it. You can get pre-workout on Amazon or literally like any grocery store, like drugstore. You can find cheaper and just as high quality pre-workout. And so you don't actually need these really overpriced crappy products, and you don't actually need Beachbody On Demand or their stupid Beachbody On Demand Interactive where it's just like live classes. There's channels all over YouTube with live classes. There's channels all over YouTube with full exercise workout programs. What do you think?
I also, another way to say this that maybe isn't as challenging or as aggressive, right? Is price the only thing that's keeping you from getting started today? This is probably the one, because sometimes I'm a weenie and I get scared, I'll admit. This is the one I default to the most. Is price the only thing that's keeping you from jumping in today? Because
So she said that weirdly. Like I first heard that as price the only thing, but it's saying so price is the only thing keeping you from jumping in today. So the only issue if you're not wanting to jump in and start my business with me is the price of it.
Or you can even break this up into two parts. This one, both of these are my favorites, right? Because if they're like, yes, Kayla, like I would literally, if it was, it's $200. If it was $150, I would buy it right now. Well, you probably have an option to get started. Again, call their bluff. Awesome. Well, we actually have an option where you can get started for $100. How does that sound? If they're still giving you a hard time, we might move to the bless and release, right? Because you don't have all day to screw around. It's like, are you serious about working with me or no?
I hate that. Like we're gonna call their bluff, and then if they're still giving me a hard time, bless and release. They kind of forget that these people might be saying it's too expensive. One, because it's actually too expensive, or two, they just don't want it, and they're not trying to start like a conflict with you over the internet, and they're just trying to let you down easy. And that's why I hate, like, this is not normal sales like where a salesperson is taught to overcome objections and use different like communication tactics to may help the prospect see that their product or service will meet their pain points. But it's more predatory in Beachbody because it's not just about selling a product, it's also about pulling someone into a predatory and an ethical business structure where more than likely they are going to fail and they're going to lose money, because not everyone in Beachbody can be 15-star diamond. Not everyone can be at the top of the company, because when everyone's at the top, it's the floor, and then the top builds from there. You know what I mean? So it's actually impossible for everyone to find true financial success in Beachbody. And all I mean by true financial success is you make a decent, reasonable wage where you can meet all your needs, and maybe like participate in your community a bit, join like a soccer team, and go out to the movies or to dinner when you want to.
Right? Another question I love to ask, a little bit of calling their bluff, a little bit of market research. Well, what would you expect to pay for a support group for 30 days? What would you expect to invest in that? And this is also a great way for them to actually realize that they're not investing in the stuff that comes in the box, right? They're investing in the outcome. So this is a great question that gets them centered on what actually matters, because what matters matters, and what doesn't.
What matters and what doesn't. Like, what does that even mean? So she's saying you can say like, what do you expect to pay for a support group? You can find that stuff all over YouTube. You can find it on Facebook for free or for very cheap. If you have some friends you like to work out with, you can make your own support group and go through YouTuber fitness people's like workout programs or their challenges, or just do random videos on their channel, right? Like you don't need to spend like $160 to join this group. You can join the Patreon of YouTube fitness people for like $13-14 a month, where you are a support group. People go through workouts together and like post pictures and encourage each other and talk about progress. And it's like $14 a month compared to $160, because remember, the majority of these challenge groups, you have to buy a challenge pack to go to the group. Very few of them are free, but most of them you have to buy a challenge pack. So it's $160 to join these bullshit support groups that you can join anywhere else for a lot cheaper or free on the internet. What do you think about that? That's what I want to talk about today because I found that the other overcoming objection portions I already talked about in my other videos, and I didn't want to be super repetitive. What do you think about her language around I want to call their bluff because they're lying and it's not actually too expensive? What do you mean it's not expensive? I think this is interesting because the coach was questioning and requiring the prospect to justify how they spend their money. And she's like, oh, well, why don't we go through your budget and see where we can cut things out to make space for Beachbody, right? And instead of that, because that approach assumes that they're being truthful about it being too expensive and they don't actually have the money. This approach kind of twists that around and assumes that they're lying, that they're bluffing, and that you can just make them see that $160 for a 30-day support group is valuable and is beneficial, or you can just undersell them a little bit and just provide them with a cheaper option because like they have some money, like everyone has some money, everyone has $100 laying around, and at least they can sign up for Beachbody on demand. I thought those two different approaches, one assuming they're being truthful and the other one assuming they're bluffing, was really interesting, and I wanted to talk about that. And if you're interested in watching that other video, I think it's just called Overcoming Objections as a Beachbody Coach, and it's on my channel. So that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear what you think about this topic down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!